everybody to this event. As some of you know who go to RocGrowth events regularly, quite often we end up focusing, when we think about innovation and local advantages, we end up focusing quite a bit on technology and what's coming out of universities and things like that. But there are of course other advantages that this area has. And one of those is the space that we, I think, kind of generally we'll call today agriculture and food. And we have two individuals here who have started organizations that we're going to learn about today in those spaces and tell us about what is it like to do that here locally, what are the advantages, disadvantages, what could we do more of. And I'll start off by, Michele, do you want to introduce yourself? So we're going to have to pass this back and forth.
For those of you that don't know, I am Michele Liddle, and I am the owner and founder of the Perfect Granola. Right now, we are actually one of the fastest growing granola companies in the Northeast. We sell across 48 states. We just this year became a national brand. And our whole company is mission-based. So we share our profits with homeless shelters, outreach centers, and food banks. And last year, we started a student program where we now hire at-risk youth with a partnership with Hillside Work Scholarship Connection. So that way, we can really teach the people that are living in poverty a way to break free of that poverty cycle. We teach them fiscal responsibility with banking programs, paid community service days, so they can start thinking about how their actions impact the community. And we offer pay above minimum wage with flexible benefits and scheduling. So that way, they can always put school first, and hopefully, they're going to be the rising stars within our community over the next few years.
Tough act to follow. Yeah, having been a mentor for the Compeer and Hillside program, I just really respect the work that you've done. And my name is Zach Sarkis. I'm the co-founder of Flower City Solutions. We are an ag tech startup in Rochester. So we are on the technology side of things, but really looking at the emerging hemp industry as a doorway into the agricultural sector. We see great opportunity around the opportunity to innovate, to develop solutions and tools that can help us drive agriculture in general by capitalizing the momentum on this kind of green wave of the hemp industry. So a lot of what we're doing being an early startup is top secret. So there's some things I'll dive into and some things I might hold back on. But yeah, looking forward to engage in this conversation.
Well, let me start off with a really basic thing that I think you can dive into. That I don't think there'll be a secret there, because some people already asked me, what is essentially cannabis, hemp? What are they used for? How are they different? How are some of the recent events that are playing out right now in Albany and across the country? How do all these things affect you, or can you explain it?
Yeah, of course. So up until maybe last year, the conversation has been that hemp and marijuana are different, and they are, but not as different as we think. The term cannabis is the bigger picture. You know, it's the cannabis family. There are some varieties that were bred just like apples that are going to get you high. Some of them are these CBD, that buzzword CBD-based plants that it's in the hemp category. The real difference is, for it to be considered hemp, it has to have less than 0.3% THC. And that's that psychotropic, the thing that people are used to hearing getting you high, but also has a high medicinal value. But yeah, the hemp plant, industrial hemp as it's being addressed in New York State, is very much a plant that can be derived for its medicinal compounds, the CBD, and many other cannabinoids, which we can go down that road in a little bit. But also the food. It's this high protein, high omega-3, omega-6 seed that comes from this plant that can be really grown in abundance. And what we'll see as an opportunity to enter into the commodity sector of our farming community that's really in need of some innovation. So the next step beyond that is also this fiber that we know could be used for clothes. We're not there yet in the U.S. There's a lot of infrastructure requirements along manufacturing, but still even just building material and breaking that fiber down to a scale and degree that could be integrated into what we'll call hemp-based fiberglass. So there's already many car manufacturers that are using hemp, especially in Europe, as a replacement for the glass fibers. So it's really this broad spectrum plant that has, some sides of it are going to be highly regulated, some of it are going to be commodity and grown just like corn. So and new developments. I mean, really, you look at this big industry, maybe folks weren't that sure about what was going on until Constellation poured, $4 billion into canopy growth just across the lake. And then you got to wonder, like, whoa, what's going on here? Now Canopy Growth is saying they're going to put a $150 million facility down in Binghamton to focus on CBD, to focus on hemp. So really, there's this momentum that living in Rochester, you would have no idea the forces at hand. The amount of money that's already pouring into the industry, the amount of innovation and development that has happened in just the past 5 years, and the amount of work ahead of us to have a stabilized, mature industry. So there's really a lot of excitement. And yeah, of course, just 2018, the passing of the federal farm bill, the 2018 farm bill is essentially legalizing hemp across the board. It has some specific parameters which you'll have to operate under. But we also know that Governor Cuomo is talking about legalization. And not just Governor Cuomo, there's been a group of hard-working activists who've been really pushing for sensible cannabis policy. We have representatives from this room actually shout out to Steve, who's working with Rock Normal, who's going down to Albany regularly to ensure that what's being pushed is pushed in a way that is socially oriented, it's community oriented, and not just the big verticals own the market. So a lot of work going on, and just really excited to be part of it.
So, Michele, as far as I know, all uses of granola are legal in New York State so far. If you could perhaps tell us a little bit about the story of how you started the Perfect Granola, what was your background and some of the early challenges?
Sure. So we actually launched this company in 2016. I got the idea when I was volunteering at our local food bank. I saw that there was a sincere lack of healthy, allergy-free products that were just on the food pantry shelves. So one day after my volunteer work, I got home and I told my husband, I'm going to change the world. And I'm going to start a food company, and I'm going to give everything away and feed people that are hungry right away. And when we grow to be a company that can actually hire people, we're going to hire the people that are walking into those food pantry shelves and shopping there. Because at the end of the day, a human natural instinct is just to have community involvement and feel like you're part of something and have a job and feel like you're contributing to your house and your family and in the community. So that's where the idea stemmed from. We launched 2016 with Wegmans. We are now sold in all of their locations in Nature's Market. And some of the early challenges was funding that growth. So in 2018, we did close a small round of funding to get us over the vertical of rebranding our company and launching into some new markets. At that stage, we were in 9 states across the Northeast. And then with that rebranding, we were able to add about 4 more states up in the Northeast, selling in stores like Tops and ShopRite. At the end of 2018, we closed an account with Walmart's. So now we're sold in half of their locations nationwide. And the reason why they started with half is because I was a single founder. So they saw me as a risk in the category. Can I fund the purchase orders? Can we make sure that there's enough inventory on the shelf to be able to supply? So this year, we're working with Walmart to close the other half of the nation and be sold in all of their stores nationwide with some new products as well. But from the very beginning, we started making donations. The first batch of granola that I actually made in my home kitchen, we donated all of it. And then we started really reaching out to the community and seeing where we were going to actually sell the product, because obviously that's not a sustainable model. And then once we started closing some accounts, then the flood of email started with, can you help me? We had a young gentleman that asked to be put through Teen Challenge, which is an addiction rehabilitation center. Well, if anybody knows me, it's really hard for me to say no. So the company sponsored that young gentleman, and then more emails followed with sponsoring the YMCAs and the Foundation for Missing and Exploited Children. And so every so often we're able to make these huge donations to these different organizations with the same mindset that we have to make sure that we have a sustainable and profitable company, or else we're not able to continue our mission. So we did dial it down a little bit to 5% of profits go back out the door to existing organizations. But now within our company, every decision that we make with the intention of bettering the community. So we're actually putting in a brand new manufacturing line with FoodLink to support their workforce development training program. We're capitalizing the entire project ourselves, putting in brand new equipment. So that way FoodLink is able to train their trainees on our equipment, making our products. And then by the end of the year, we're going to be able to put them in full-time placement within our own facility that we're building right now. So everything that we do really ties back into how can we make sure that our company is profitable, but then how can we also spin it to create something great for the community.
So Zach, what is it that would make one area a particularly fertile one for being able to build out a large kind of industrial or agricultural presence around hemp and cannabis?
Well, I'd first say that you look at Rochester and you can't think anything other than assets and potential. I mean, we have the university systems that are state-of-the-art, world-class, whether it be medical or engineering. It's just incredible. And the surrounding fertile land and the growing momentum around greenhouses, it depends on what you're cultivating and for what, whether you're growing in a field or indoors or in a greenhouse setting. But and we also have the space, the manufacturing capacity to actually, take some of these dormant buildings and re-engage them. It's truly there's assets, there's the innovators, there's the entrepreneurs, and there's also routes to market. We are 6 hours from so many major cities that really provides us as a niche, and this kind of breadbasket, around Lake Ontario, going all the way to Albany, down to Ohio and into Pennsylvania, that really, I would say we got it. It's how. And so again, depending on what you're cultivating for these varieties, has different requirements. So if we're planting for grain or for fiber, you're going to want a higher quality soil because the yields will be worth your while. It's not worth investing in something that might give you so-so returns. It's, the farming community are some of the most stringent and focused business people in our community. And these decisions come down the wire of what will I get from putting something different in the soil. And currently, as we're looking at it, like if you can offer some folks something more than $300+ an acre, they're willing to try something new. The times are pretty desperate in our surrounding rural regions. And so when we begin seeing the potential of returns on even just a commodity grain that are, let's just say easily above 500, that's let alone for the CBD cultivation, it's exponential, the amount of returns that you can get, but it's also a gamble. Agriculture is like going to Vegas, it's so in this kind of changing world we live in, that's really trying to be strategic of like, how do we get the best seed in the best soils to ensure we get returns and have that connected to markets and processors who can bring it to market beyond, because without the supply chain, without the network, without the ecosystem, there's really nothing. And I think that there's the innovative infrastructure and existing business units, as well as people who are coming into the field here in Rochester, let alone across the state, that really creates this space of potential.
So Michele, maybe a somewhat similar question. I know that some of your, you began using a co-packer when you initially started. Now things are kind of progressing beyond that. But maybe speaking more broadly at first, what is it that makes this area or any area particularly good in terms of the kind of processing production of food? And maybe also talk a little bit about your own future plans around that.
As far as processing the food, so we're actually securing some farms around the area to produce our ingredients for us because we want to support local and bring up this community as much as possible. But as far as building business in Rochester as a whole, this is really where it all happens. We really do have a support system here in Rochester that is, in my opinion, unlike no other. The amount of people that are here in this community that are willing to take a chance on young entrepreneurs. I see a few of them in the audience today, and one of the mentors that I've had through this process, because that's really how young starting companies can really succeed, is having a strong network of business owners and mentors and advisors here in this area, and then also the amazing opportunities through some of the programs that we have as well is unlike no other that I've seen with RocGrowth consistently. really bringing up entrepreneurs and highlighting what they're doing in this industry, but also organizations like Launch New York and Climb and the 10 Group and all these amazing programs that are here. They're just there, and they're willing and they're ready to help entrepreneurs succeed.
So now thinking about hemp and cannabis and thinking about the different support systems that exist, one, some of those similar organizations that may help agriculture or technology, how are they feeling about being part of, and are they part of any support system right now around hemp and cannabis? And to the extent that they're not, or kind of in any case, what do you see as the needed support system here in order for hemp to be a growing industry?
Yeah, I'd say that first and foremost, it requires community engagement because, when it comes to cannabis specifically, a community can opt out. Rochester can say no, and that changes everything. And it's important to hear people's concerns. It's important to understand where everyone's coming from and really having a mature dialogue about the potential of this, future 100-year industry we're just the precipice of. Even the Canadians who've been in this industry for years, they're saying we have 10 more years before we know anything. That includes stability. But there's definitely a lot of fear. I would say that the biggest pitfalls of the system right now fall along the lines of the supply chain, a fragmented supply chain that kind of is reflective of the ag industry in general. It's like it's not a farmer's game; it's a buyer's game, and the products go somewhere down the line and get put in something. That kind of alludes to the next big concern is transparency and traceability. When people are taking food or quote medicine into their bodies, it's like, how do we know where that came from? Can you be assured that there's actually anything in there, or that is that product that is organic, that was fair trade, what have you? There's a growing demand from the consumer base to really know where products are coming from, and it's cultivated both in the field as well as in the package with a form of integrity that I think is going to be growing continuously. So there's support needed around there. And then just education, again, bringing stakeholders together, having conversations that can support those with interests, as well as the amount of mentors that are in this room for myself, as well as again hearing from Michele. It's like it's going to take a lot of people who have experience in other fields to bring that to the table to help the people who want to build this industry of tomorrow. And so I don't think that there's any stark resistance, even from the police, let's say, the law. It's not that there's an it's more like, how do we do this safely? And that's, I think, the bridging of how do we engage with this new market, this new plant that has a plethora of applications, but it's done in a way there's some kind of control, and it's not a free-for-all that we've seen in other states. And I think that Albany's working on that, as well as the individuals who are operating in the industry. It's like, we want it to be safe, we want it to be clean, we want it to be transparent, we want it to be cultivated, whether that's, again, indoor or outdoor, in a way that's sustainable. And it's really this doorway into, again, agriculture of how can we change things? The innovation, there's nothing but innovation.
So Michele, a big part of your company and its start, it's the way it operates, has really to do with social impact. And there are more and more discussions happening around town about whether or not conscious capitalism, kind of more socially conscious businesses, whether that could even be an economic development strategy for this area. Can you talk a little bit about, to what extent do you think your success, marketing, or the way people kind of work or have responded to what extent is that perhaps attributable to the social impact story, and I don't mean story in a bad way, but the social impact narrative around what you do, and to what extent do you think it could be an economic development strategy for other businesses?
That's exactly part of my 25-year plan. Is I'm taking very clear notes about what is working within my company and what's not. Because at the end of the day, what I want to do in 20, 25, 30 years is teach other companies what we did, how we implemented these programs, and how we can then take it to other people's companies. So that's actually my long-term plan. But I see it now, it's really helping us mark our differentiator in the market. Of course, we have a healthy product. We actually won Best in Family Products last year and this year again with our coconut cranberry granola bars. So we know that we've got a good product. We know that it's allergy-free and non-GMO and all those good things. But there's a lot of granola on the market that is also healthy for you and also low in sugar and also non-GMO. But it's really our social aspect. And everyone knows that if they're buying a perfect product, it's not just healthy and perfect, but it's actually creating social change within their communities and helping bring people up. And that's really been a branding effort with us on our end, and we're working with a local marketing firm to make sure that our branding and our message is clear to consumers across the nation. Right? Because in Rochester, everybody knows who we are, what we're doing, and how we're able to bring up this community. But we want to make sure that it's clear in our branding message across the nation. But we also want to associate ourselves with some of these amazing organizations that we've been able to help and shine light on what they're doing and all the amazing things that they're doing within their own communities, because we can't do it alone. Every aspect of this company I have not done alone. I have always had mentors and advisors and people helping me along the way, because this is truly a community company and something that's built here and staying here to bring Rochester up out of poverty. And if we can do it successfully within our own company, we're able to implement those same changes into other companies and span a lot further than just the Rochester and upstate New York region.
And Zach, I mean, it seems like there's been perhaps a little bit more pushback than some people would have assumed in terms of to Governor Cuomo's legalization plan. If either enough communities, whether it's this one locally or enough communities around New York State, decide to opt out, or it just doesn't pass in the way that you think, or in the way that it's planned right now by Governor Cuomo, is the medicinal use of it and kind of the industrial hemp use of it, is that enough to sustain some sort of industry that would make sense for this area to participate in? Or is kind of the recreational marijuana need to be legal for this industry to really grow?
Yeah, I would say that the recreational market is a fraction of the whole. Like realistically, when we're talking about the hemp plant and the products derived from it, we put on an incredible educational event at St. John Fisher this past fall called the NYHempLab. Had a handful, these four of the presenters were PhD. One of the keynote was one of the leading researchers in North America on industrial hemp, based out of Alberta, Canada. And so we got some great videos online if you want to learn more about hemp in general and its utilitarian value, because really, again, the chemical compounds of the plant are a fraction of the products that will be derived from this. And as manufacturing catches back up with the processing capacity catches back up with the hemp plant, the applications, like, it's going to touch every single segment of industry across the board. There's not something that will be more than a degree of separation, whether it's a product or a piece or a part or a piece of food. It goes on. It's all dependent on the technology we have and how we can apply that to the hemp plant. So I think that no matter what individuals choose to do around the recreational side of things, hemp is here, and it's how do we engage with it? How do we set up supply chains that are inclusive? How do we support businesses in innovation and develop technologies around this plant with this momentum that will go beyond cannabis and into agriculture in general? Because we really have an opportunity to develop new solutions, new techniques, new approaches that as the market builds, as it floods, as it grows, those will be able to spread into other sectors of agriculture. And that's really the biggest thing we're excited about, Flower City Solutions.
So maybe one quick question for each of you, and then we're going to do a Q&A session with those in attendance. So each of you has been working on a startup. Startups, and no matter what you're doing, are difficult things. What are the one or two kind of key learnings that each of you has had that if somebody came to you that's a few years behind where you are now, that you'd want to make sure to pass along to them?
Sure. So I would say it's a piece of advice that I heard from day one is don't grow too quickly. Totally didn't listen to that advice and had to learn the hard way. But we did back in 2017 when I almost put myself out of business by accepting too many purchase orders and trying to grow too quickly. So really creating that infrastructure first to make sure that you can get out into the market, because you also hear that a lot of startups fail. You look at those statistics and those are super scary, especially when you've invested your entire life savings into starting a company in a completely saturated market like granola. So everybody thought I was crazy from the beginning. So I was just happy to get accounts, and like I said, I needed to learn the hard way. So I would say, make sure you've got a good handle on things and make sure you've got a great group of advisors and mentors. So when there is an issue, you can call somebody and work it out. And back in 2017, I called one of my friends in tears and was like, holy crap, I think I just put my company out of business. And he was able to at least offer some advice and point me in the right direction to hopefully kind of regroup and get myself out of it. And we were able to, and now, we've been able to grow out of that and actually create some accounts that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
So I think two things. First is focus. I love the big picture so much. It's just great. But really channeling down and coming with a clear vision, a clear direction. It takes everything, all of our potential, and really just sends it forward. And I think that's also directly connected to be able to pivot. Things change all the time. There's no failure. It doesn't matter. The pivot can be in a new product, new decision, or a new venture. It's just be ready and willing. And I think that's so much of the journey of can I give myself permission to keep on going? And so that's what I'd share with others.
Thank you both very much. If we can give them a hand, and then we'll do Q&A.